Okay, so we're ready to go, 7 o'clock. And today we're going to be talking about new features in FileMaker 17. So let's go around the room and we'll all do our introductions. I'm not going to move my computer around this time. I actually have a camera here. So I can turn it this way and see everyone. So would you like to start?
Christy, Mac Advantage. Erica Kuhn.
Daniel, Entry Enforcer.
Joshua Rivers, 360 Works.
Sean Kuhn, 360 Works.
Warren Church, 360 Works.
Thomas McGlasson, Blue Feather.
And I'm David Nahodyl from Blue Feather, and I'm going to be doing the presentation today on the new features in FileMaker 17. So I'm going to switch this around to start showing my screen on here. Okay. Tom, can you do me a favor and pull up the website and go to the live streaming thing and just keep an eye on that because people ask questions through there. So you can let me know if there's someone who has a question on that. Thank you. Okay, so FileMaker 17 is out and it's new and exciting. Yay. And everyone loves when a new version of FileMaker comes out. There were some pretty significant interface changes, a couple of new features. The data APIs had some improvements to it. There are new things in FileMaker Go, new API access for the admin console changed today, and kind of do a demonstration on some of the new features and all these things. So I want to start out with FileMaker Pro. I have that open here. So as soon as you open up FileMaker Pro, it looks different. This is what we've got on here now. And this is the new the My Apps section. And I actually found this to be a nice tool when deploying solutions for clients. For me, I've used it for myself for pinning, sort of like pinning solutions here onto this My App section for things that I access frequently. But when you're deploying things for clients, it's really convenient. You make a solution, kind of like the old favoriting in FileMaker 16 and earlier, but it gives them a more of like an app launcher look to it. And so people see these things as like, oh yeah, I'm going to this program now. And it shows the icons there nice and large. You still have your history. Those things will open up in there. But the My Apps, I think, is really, it's a new way to display the things that you access most frequently, and I like it and use it. I think it's great for deploying solutions. Another change for opening files. So this is the My Apps screen. If we go to File, My Apps, and go to Show My Apps, this is what pops up on here. The recent's the same, but the hosts is different. So before it was Open Remote, and now we've got hosts, and we've got the My Hosts section. So it's File, Hosts. And this is the host window instead of File Open Remote. So it serves the same kind of purpose, but it's a little different. The menu system's a little different for it, and it can be confusing the first time you open it up. If you find a file that you want to add onto your app section, you can just right-click on it and say Add to My Apps. So we're going to be using that demo 17 file. So I just added it right here, and it shows up really nicely now. It's in my launcher for quick access. So even, I mean, as a developer, it's good for the clients, but as a developer, it's great if you've got files on 10 different servers, and those 10 different servers have 10 different files on them. Instead of browsing through 100 files, you can just pick the couple that you're working on right now. So it's nice and convenient for that. All right, so let's open up this demo file. All right, so in here, things look fairly similar, but I'm going to pop into layout mode, and we're going to see that this has actually changed pretty significantly. The developer tools have had a lot of updates in FileMaker 17. So the first most noticeable thing is we now have these docked bars on the left. These are controlled in the top right corner by these show hide panes. So this is the like the inspector object that we would have floating around before is now docked onto the screen, and it expands and collapses. As you open these things up. So it's the same features, but it's now docked on the side, so it kind of sticks with it, doesn't get lost as much as it does before. And now you can still open up a new inspector on here if you want to do this. So we can go to Inspector and say New Inspector. So if you like the floating one, it's still there. You can keep that open.
I didn't think it's good.
Yeah, it's very, I know, right? Sometimes you need the floating one because it's
Yes.
taking up space. Yeah, so it's still there if you need it. And same thing with the objects. So you go into here, view, objects. We'll show this inspector here. All right. So yes, we've got the floating inspector, and that's available in there. On the layouts, one very useful thing for developers is now you can copy and paste custom menus. So this is not something that you could do before. But if you make a new menu set and you like this and you've developed kind of your standard replacement menu set for FileMaker and you want to not have to manually do that over and over again and pick out all those things and it's like, oh, I can't remember what order those menus were in. Now you can take it and you can copy it and you can paste it and make as many copies of that as you want and move it between your solutions. So huge help. Thank you very much, FileMaker, for adding that in there. Let's see here. All right, so grouping has changed in here. And this is something that I also think is a really great improvement. If I'm working with these fields on these layouts, I'm going to take these and group these together. So we will go here and say group, right? Command R to group those. I'm going to group these together. Command R, group those up. They show in here as these groups. But if I'm working in this, let's say I'm going to actually group these two groups together as well. So now I've got a nested set of groups. Now, in FileMaker 16 and earlier, if we wanted to work with these things, we'd be in a bit of a bind if we had put some scripts on some of this stuff, maybe some conditional formatting somewhere. We've got to, if we made this a button, we have to ungroup things before we can work with them. But with FileMaker 17, we can go into these subgroups and still pick and move these individual objects within these groups and subgroups without breaking the grouping.
Wow.
So very, very helpful. So as you can see here, now the first level group that I did here was the name last field and the name last label. And since I've gone into one of those fields that's in that subgroup, it shows the groups that I've got selected. So I can pick our full group and click a second time. And now we see the outer box, because that's showing the full group of these two subgroups. I can click again, go further down into it. I'm 2 groups in, and I can still select this item and move it around if I want to without breaking the groups. So I can resize this, move this stuff around, and I haven't broken my groupings. This is still one group thing that I can move around.
Can you expand the pane for the size? Because I know in some versions they weren't showing the position of the entire group section.
Yeah, so it shows group here. If you select multiple things, it shows it in gray here. Yeah,
before it wasn't.
It would show some dashes. I don't remember which one that was in. Yeah. But yeah, and I ungrouped it to show those multiple things here. So I'll regroup these. But yeah, it's very nice that you can work inside a group without having to break your grouping. So that's really, really fantastic.
So in order to do that, you clicked. Can you just go to the left and click?
Yep, you can do that too. So I don't have anything selected here. These are these groups. I want to move the name first box here. I can just click on that and start moving that around.
Okay.
Similarly, we can right click on this if we needed to. We could do this, we can do this hide all other objects. And it's still in the group.
Right.
While we're moving this around, it shows where the other things are with the box.
Right.
But we've gone straight to it. We've hidden everything else on the layout. So it's easy to work in there without breaking the groups. That's very much like if you're working in Illustrator or Photoshop, something like that. You can get into those groups without breaking things.
Hello.
Hey, come on in.
Hello. Got pizza.
Hi. Party going on. Jessica?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see here. So let's continue on. All right. So here I'm going to shrink these fields back down again. So it's a nice little list. So this is a person table, and I've created a person table, and I've got 4 people in this right now. I can flip between these people here in the top.
Yeah, sorry, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Once you select them, can you change the attributes?
Yes. Yeah, we can go back here. We can go through and change, like I've got this field selected, right? I can change this to go to a different field. I can go over here and change the styles. Whatever you want to do, you can edit all of this without breaking the grouping. We can go and you can still do conditional formatting on all of these things and add all of that in without breaking formatting. You can do conditional formatting from over here too if you want to. Right-click on it, and you can do it right there without even having to find the object on the layout. Okay, so we've got 4 records in this table, person, and you can make a list view of this, right? We're going to give someone, give them like a list view, detail view, maybe, that kind of a thing. We want to do that. But maybe that's not the best interface for this. We're used to things like an email where we have the list on the left and our details on the right in 2 columns. For the FileMaker 17, they've improved and added new functionality to portals where we can actually have a built-in, without having to make any new relationships or any new tables, but do a master, like a master detail view by selecting the current table for our portal that we're adding to the layout. So I'm going to add this on here. And I'm just going to put this first last field on here. Done. That quick. So before we would always have to do this, like we'd do like a self-join relationship, you know, and it took a little bit of extra work to put something in there. But this is now showing our found set. This isn't just the current table. This is our found set. If I search for D in here and do a find, we found 1 record. That's the one that shows up on the left. So if the users change their found set, it changes what shows up in that list. Very, very convenient. Saves a ton of time. And that's a behavior that a lot of users have wanted. And that's hard to do. Like even with the self-join, you can't get a found set and change what's in that list. You have to do a lot of other work to make something like that happen. And now it's just super easy. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit show all, and we can see everything reappears on the left side here. Now there's even some built-in functionality with this. If I just go and click on one of these records, it changes which record we're viewing. So it automatically updates it. Let me turn on the active record on here again. Active row state. We can show that. It's very useful. Yeah, so I can click it, and you can see at the top it's changing the record that we're on just from clicking on one of these rows. I haven't added any buttons to it. Haven't added any scripts or script triggers. It's just field on there. And done. Master detail. That fast. Very useful. Now, to add some support for this, because we've got this new thing, they've added a new function, which is the get active. Let me show this one here. We'll go to add a new field on here into person. This is going to be record number. So this is the field we've had before. Get record number. And I'm going to make this unstored. Put this on here. I'm going to add this onto the layout. Oops. Expand this a little bit. All right, so we've got our record number here now on the right side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They've added a new function, which I will use here. I'll show this in the data view, which gives us not just the record number in the found set, which is what this is, right? And that's kind of matching what's up there. This is the get active record number. It shows 1. And I'm going to show you how these values differ and where we can use this new function. This is, as far as I can tell, designed specifically for when you want to do a master detail portal. This new get active record number is showing 1 here. Let me clear out some of these other things. All right, get active record number is showing 1. So the difference is if we want to use get record number, for these things in the portal, they're going to show 1 value. But if we use get record number again on here, it's not, the get active record number shows this value in the top left. Get record number shows in the portal, it's going to show us the value in the portal kind of through this fake relationship that we have going on here. So they're going to end up being different values. Let me make another calculation on here. Show you what this looks like in the portal. And we can then use this. Then we have two unstored calculations in this portal. We have our record number. I'm going to put this active record number here next to it. They show different values now when we're using them in the portal, which means we can use we can use record number and get active record number to determine if the record that we've selected, that we've clicked on in here, matches the record that we're viewing. So if we wanted to add a button which only showed up when we have selected on the record on the list, which is the record we're viewing, we can do that by comparing these two values. Let me add a button on here. We're going to make a little star to show this is the one that we like. We have a little star icon here. Give it a star. And I'm going to add a FIDE calculation here. So we're going to say when get record number not equal to get active record number. And so now this button will only show on the record that we have selected. So I believe that this is specifically the use case that this function was added for when we have these master detail portals. It's a new function just in FileMaker 17, and here is probably the prime use case of when people are going to want to use this. Okay, so if I've been working on this, and I'm like, okay, this is great. I've got all these people. I want to add some pets for these people. So I do add tables all the time, right? We always do this, right? And we always do the same thing. We add the table, we go put in our primary key, we put in the creation timestamps, modification timestamps, creation accounts, modification, all this stuff over and over and over again, a million times. My fingers do it automatically. I can do it blindfolded now because I know what the fields are going to have to go in here. But FileMaker 17, new feature for this, when we create our new table, it starts with a whole bunch of fields in here already.
Cool.
Which fields is that? ID, creation timestamp, creation account, modification timestamp, modification account, exactly the things that we need. Yeah, with a set of default fields. Now, these field names that I have in here are not the ones that a fresh FileMaker 17 deployment will have when you create a new table, because you can customize them. So if you have a naming convention that you like, you have something in your company, you want everyone to create the same set of names and field definitions and the same values and all these things all the time, you can set your own custom field list of default fields. Yeah. And where this is controlled, so that's great. Now we've got this table of pets. I didn't have to make all those extra fields in there. This is controlled. We go to, I'm going to open up here. We're going to go to, oops, this is going to be users. Let me just start here. We'll go to users, shared, FileMaker, and then shared here. Then there's an XML file called default fields. So let's open this and take a look at this. This is what that looks like. So here we can see, I'm going to collapse all these. We can see this is the list of fields that we're going to have created by default. So here we go. Here's the name, ID, creation timestamp, creation account, modification timestamp, modification account. These are the values that I put in here. If I wanted to, I can, let me quit out of FileMaker. We'll get this to reload. If I don't like modification account like this, I think I should spell modification account with a whole bunch of extra keys. We can change that and put that in here. If we don't want this to be text, we can make this something else. There's a comment that you can set in here. Let me expand this. We can see these other values, auto enter values, if we're going to have validation. There are a lot of different values you can change to make these default fields be exactly what you want them to be. So I've changed this modification account. I like it with the extra T's. I'm going to make a new file here. And let's open up 17. All right.
Do you still have the capability in 17, like previous advanced versions, to just copy and paste the fields from one to
yeah.
the other?
But we don't have to. You know, we've got the default fields, and now look, see, this is the value that I changed in here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have to remember like have your repository that you go back to copy and paste things out of. It's gonna just have them in there right away. So there it is. That's the change that I made. I changed those T's in there. Very easy to set the name to be exactly what you want it to be and put in those values.
You could be very conservative and have 10 of those and just delete the 2 you don't need, or it'd probably be quicker to do that than to. That's neat.
So that's where you configure that. Pull this up again. Here's the path for that. So it's going to be on your computer, users, shared, FileMaker, shared, and then the file name is defaultfields.xml. So I really like that. That's great. And I made a new file, but this will work on existing files. You don't have to make a new file for that to kick in. This is per computer setting. That's the other thing to keep in mind. So if you're changing computers, you're going to have to copy your default field settings to each of the other computers. If you're working with other people, you want to make sure everyone's got the same default field set. It's not a per solution thing. It's per machine. OK, let's go back to our demo file and talk about a couple other things which have happened on here. So we're back in FileMaker. There are a couple new changes to some scripts. Send mail. We can now do multiple attachments by specifying one path per line. You can do multiple attachments on there. So that's very useful. Before, we could only have one attachment in the send mail script step. Perform script. There's a new option on here. Instead of just picking the script, we can do perform script by name. And then we can calculate the name of the script that we want to execute. So that's great. Let's see here. What are some of these new changes? All right, custom dialogues. Show custom dialog. If you wanted to collect input from users, show custom dialog was a very good way to do that. We can make a little dialog that says, a password reset dialog, and we want to have it star out the passwords that they're putting in there, because you're going to run a script to reset passwords, maybe in multiple files or something like that. To collect the user's input before, we always had to specify a field that the user's input was going to go into, which sometimes meant you need to create a new global field to collect the user's input. But with FileMaker 17, we can specify a variable that we want this input to go into. So actually, let me cancel out here. I have a script here. Let's just make this one here. So I'm going to say collecting input. Please enter a value. Okay. Input field. I'm going to add an input field. We're going to store this in a variable now. This is the new thing, in a variable called data. By selecting this variable option down here. And I'm going to say this is, I'm just going to call this input 1. OK. Now, in this show custom dialog, I'm going to say a little calculation that's just going to show what we collected from before. And we'll run this. So here's a new thing. Please enter a value and say, this is my data. And it comes back. So we did not have to put it in a field. It just went straight into a variable, and it's usable from that out. Which is really, really nice, not having to make those extra global fields.
Is that a local variable, like to the script?
Yes. So in this case, that's what I did. We could do a global global variable.
You could set I guess you could set a global and then assign that variable to the global if you need to pass it to it.
I think we could do that right here. I mean, look, I can set data as a global variable.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll run this again, and it's not gonna have it there. Oops, let me. All right, let's take a look at our data viewer, and there's our global variable that we just set.
Sure.
So it's very convenient instead of having to use global fields all the time. If it's just a one-off thing you need in the script, you don't need to maintain that now.
Yeah, your fields.
Yep. OK. So a couple other minor script changes. Export field contents now has a new option on here, create directories. So if you're specifying a path that doesn't exist, maybe you want to go to the desktop, but you need to also make some folders to export wherever you're going to go on here. You can use create directories, and you can specify a whole path. If the folders don't exist, it'll make those folders for you, instead of just giving you an error saying that the path is invalid. Now be careful with that though, because if you misspell something, things are going to go where you're not expecting them. You have you put it on the desktop, and then users username desktop. That's not what you want. Okay. All right. Let's see. A couple other new functions on here. We now have get. This is the data viewer. Right here. Okay, what these look like. One other one here. We have a new. So before we've always had get UUID, right? That gives us a alphanumeric UUID. Very, very convenient. But sometimes you want to use a numeric UUID. We have get UUID number, which returns a numeric UUID. Now this can be good because using numeric UUIDs like this, that can be faster for indexing, searching, sorting. Well, not sorting, but for indexing and searching, to use numeric values rather than text. It's easier to index. Numbers are easier to index.
Is that whether the field is text or number, or only if you use a number?
Well, you would want to use a number field for this, but before, you didn't have that option. There were a couple custom functions that people had made for generating UUIDs that would take a timestamp, a random number generator, and multiply all these things together and get something. But now it's native. So here we go. Get UUID done.
But a UUID number has a higher probability of having the same number pop up versus the alphanumeric, just the plain old UUID.
So this one's a little longer. I mean, I haven't done the math to see what the probabilities are, but I think they're both pretty small. You're right. There are fewer characters here. But I think there are more. It's a longer UUID, so I don't know what the maximums are for each one of them. I haven't done that math to check those out. Okay, so that's a lot of what we got with FileMaker Pro. Let's go on to FileMaker Server. There's a lot of new stuff with FileMaker Server. FileMaker Server received some pretty big changes with this. So let's pull this up. We're going to go to demo17.bluefeathergroup.com. All right. And so this is the new FileMaker Server admin console. Now, FileMaker Server, the changes actually start right when you first go to start installing FileMaker Server. In the past, you've just had your license key. You run your installer, you put your license key in there, you're good, you're done. With FileMaker 17, they now give you a license certificate, which you have to keep track of. When you're going to install FileMaker Server 17, you need to put that in your downloads folder. And then the installer reads it from your downloads folder. It must be named whatever that file is that they get. It's like FM cert, or something like that. Anyway, so you don't want to rename the file. Put it in your downloads folder. The installer will detect it there and then allow you to install. So it's not just the license key anymore. So now that we have it installed, the console is very different. The login screen is different. This is not that WebDirect technology that 16 and earlier were using. This is quite different. This is the new admin console, and they've changed a lot in here. Everything is organized completely differently, but it's clean, it's fast. I've found it to be very reliable so far, which is really nice, and I'm pretty pleased with it. A lot of things have moved, and some of it is in the command line now. But the interface in general is pretty nice. So I want to touch, there's a lot to go into on here, but I want to touch on some things that developers may need to see. So from this dashboard here, we can see the total number of connections and the total number of hosted databases. This shows two things here. So this shows the number of FileMaker Pro Advanced clients that count against the license limit. And then here, there are additional connections which do not count against the license limit. So keep that in mind when you're looking to see who's connected on here. Databases, we can see the databases here. If we select all databases, it shows who is connected. Or you can click on individual databases to see the activity of who are connected to each of those specific files. There's one person connected on this file, no one else over here. We can select the people and do our regular disconnect. Please say, get out, I don't want you here anymore. Closing files, down over here, we can select them pause, close, and then you can do your downloads and things as you need to. So it's a little different, but the functionality is still there. It just looks a little bit different.
Some questions.
Oh, some questions. Yeah.
One was about putting that into the variable. The question is, can the variable be encrypted? I'm not sure if I understand that one. It's a variable.
So FileMaker has its crypt functions, and you could encrypt something with an encryption key, a variable or anything else, but it's not. There's not any like inherent encryption to any of these variables. I think what it maybe is talking about is getting the dots. Maybe on the dialog, and so you can still get the dots on the dialog and then store that result in a variable that you're going to use later in script for something like a password reset.
He also mentioned that there is now only FileMaker Pro Advanced. No.
Oh yes, yes, that is a good thing to mention. So let's go back to this. So that is actually a really big one that I did not mention. There is no more FileMaker Pro. It's just FileMaker Pro Advanced. So when you install this, you don't get the developer tools by default. So you have to go up here, go to FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Pro Advanced, go to Preferences, and check this checkbox, Use Advanced Tools. And that will allow you to get the script debugger and the data viewer and all those other FileMaker Pro Advanced features that we all know and love. That scared some people sometimes. I know I was talking to someone, they're like, oh no, it's not here anymore, they took it out. No, no, it's fine, it's there. You just got to go in and check the checkbox. So actually that was a clients. So all right, so but let's say you don't want them to have those advanced tools. You can control that during your installation. There's the assisted install.txt file that comes with the installer, and you can control if this option is available to those users. So if you're deploying something to a whole bunch of people who you know shouldn't be messing with that kind of stuff, you can turn it off, and then they can't get to it all without reinstalling the entire program. They'll never know. Yep. So they did think of that, and there's a solution for it. The assisted install.txt file. Keep that one close by. Okay, all right, back onto FileMaker Server. So with FileMaker Server, in the past, when you've installed and deployed FileMaker Server, how are we doing on time? 7:30. When you've deployed FileMaker Server, it comes with a set of default backup schedules. There's daily, was it daily, weekly, and monthly, I think are the three that comes in there. So FileMaker Server 17 does not have all of those. This is a brand new deployment. If I go into backup schedules, there are no backup schedules here. And but there is the auto backup. And this is a new default thing which you cannot turn off through the regular user interface. You can do it through the command line, but through the regular, it's not available through the regular user interface to do this. And this is an automatic nightly backup at midnight each night. And this is the equivalent of the daily script that you would get in earlier versions of FileMaker. So it's not its own backup schedule. The backup schedule shows 0, but it does do this backup automatically as a built-in thing each night at midnight. If there's a backup that runs and you like it, so I'll say backup now on here. So I just did this backup on here. This was an on-demand backup. If we want to make sure it doesn't get overwritten when the schedule runs next, because it's going to keep, I think it's 5 days of backups on there, we can hit this preserve backup option. And I'll select this. And now this backup is going to stay here until we decide we don't want it anymore. So that'll make sure that it doesn't get overwritten. This is a new thing. They did not have the option to preserve backups before in Server 16. Now this whole interface is more like what they've had with FileMaker Cloud, and I think that I haven't used that too much, but I think that did have the option to run backups through here.
Do you manually preserve it after it's been backed up, or is that part of the?
So you pick a backup that's done, and you say, don't erase this one, preserve it. A finished backup, you say, preserve this finished backup.
But you physically have to go back and tell it to preserve it. Can you schedule it that it preserves so that as it backs up, it automatically has it checked to preserve, or you have to physically go to it?
Yeah, you have to specify that on there.
And does it become one of the 5 for the week, or?
So it's still, I mean, like if it runs at midnight, it's one of the 5.
Okay.
But when it would otherwise be its turn to be deleted, it's going to instead keep it, and now you have a 6th one because it gets pushed down, to the bottom as the oldest. And then now, instead of deleting it, it just then you have an extra one. It's going to just keep it there indefinitely until you decide you're done with it, and you can delete it.
Nice.
So you can still set up other backup schedules, though. If this isn't what you want your weekly backup, monthly backup, you can go ahead and create the schedules through here. The interface for this looks a little different, but the features are the same. We can have our weekly backup. We will do all databases. We're going to keep weekly backups for a month. And then we will run this weekly on Wednesdays. That's fine.
So you're saying this would be in addition to the automated midnight one?
Mm-hmm. Oops, did I not? Oh, there it is. It just took a second for it to show up. Okay.
Okay, so in essence, you could say number of backups to keep. You could set that to 100, and then you would basically be keeping. You'd be preserving.
So yeah, I mean, this is the same as other backups. It probably is not a good idea to keep 100 backups on there. You're going to fill up your hard drive. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, this has the same functionality as the backup schedules that you would set in the older version. It's just organized a little differently. So you get all the same features on here. If you do want to change or disable this automatic backup, you're like, I want to do a backup each night, but people are working at midnight. We got to push this off until 4 a.m. Midnight's going to kill it, because that's our highest activity time. You can still disable this through the command line on the server. It's not here through the interface, but you can still disable it, and then you maybe make your own daily backup that's going to run at 4 a.m. or whatever is a more convenient time for you. So it's not totally locked, but it is nice that they put that one in there by default, and it's just like the automatic backup. It's there. Other schedules, if you want to do script schedules, are now separate from your backup schedules. So before, FileMaker 16 and earlier, those were all merged together in one list. It's now separate here. We have to go into the configuration tab, go to script schedules, and this is where our script schedules are located. So I've made a schedule here already. Actually, I'll delete it and we'll remake it again just to see what this looks like. Oops, no, I just want to delete this here. Okay. So we're going to create a schedule, FileMaker script. We can still do a script sequence or system scripts. Test problem. All right. Database. Pick our database. One here. My credentials. Pick a script. I'm going to call this a notification. No, which one do we want here? This one here. So this new script here, this one we had show custom dialog in it. It's going to have some problems running on the server. That just is not going to be compatible. So I'm going to save this, and we want to run this. So I'll hit run now. It's going to show that run. It's done. Right? Ran very quickly. I don't know if it worked. It doesn't show this in here anymore. It doesn't show the success or failures in here or what the last error was. If we want to see that, the way you get to that is you go to the logging area, and we want to download the event.log file. I'm going to save this to my desktop. This is where you now go to see if your script was successful or not. So here, this is the script that I just ran. We had some errors. Last scripting error 3 right here. So it was not successful. This is something that I miss in the new FileMaker Server admin console, is being able to see this. But it's still there. You just have to download it and look at that event log. There's also a new feature in here for notifications. If there's an error, you can set up local notifications, and this will do, if you go to those websites and it goes, this website wants to send you notifications. FileMaker Server will now do that as well. So this one's actually probably useful if you've got the admin console open and it's not in the foreground, something goes wrong, it'll give you a notification, a little pop from that. So that's a new thing in FileMaker 17. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so another new feature which we don't see on here, but databases hosted on FileMaker Server 17 have an account lockout feature, which is designed to help prevent against brute force attacks on your database. If a user fails to log in 5 times in 5 minutes, they will have a 5-minute lockout. Now, this is not just on one account name. This is just 5 failed attempts. Even if you put in different account names each time, you'll get a lockout on there.
For the IP or?
I'm not sure what source it does. I think it does it by IP, but that might not be correct. Yeah, it's not by username. It's not by the FileMaker Pro client. The file being hosted on FileMaker Server 17 is what enables this feature. So if you try to log in with FileMaker Pro 15 or 16, or you'll still have that same limitation. It won't give you a correct error message. It'll just say the credentials aren't working, but the lockout will still happen. So it helps prevent brute force attacks on your database of people just trying new usernames and passwords constantly. Let's see. Okay. Now, another big issue with 17, which could be surprising, if you're upgrading a user from 16 who's using custom web publishing, like XML publishing or PHP web publishing, you will want to go into FileMaker Server and turn on web publishing engine. Let's turn this on. This should come on here in a second. So this is the first step, turn on web publishing with this option on here. But that's not it. That's not everything. There isn't an option through the GUI of the FileMaker Server admin console to turn on XML web publishing or PHP web publishing. You must do this through the command line. And there are new options in the command line to allow you to do this. There's a new FMS admin get and FMS admin set. Now this is, I'm gonna show how to do this because this is something we've had to do many, many times, upgrading people to FileMaker 17. And I want to show that so we can see very clearly what that looks like. So here's our FileMaker server. I'm going to open up PowerShell here. So on here, FMS admin. This is the command everyone is used to. If we want to check the status of custom web publishing, PHP, and XML, we're going to use the new get command. So we have FMS admin get, and then we're going to do CWP config. This tells us here, so we have enable PHP false, enable XML false. So PHP web publishing and XML web publishing are disabled. If you depend on those things, once you upgrade to 17, you need to remember to come back here and turn these on. The way we're going to do that is FMS admin, use the new set command, CWP config, enable PHP equals true. That's admin set CWP config is true. There we go. So there we go. PHP has been enabled. We need to restart the FileMaker Server service. FMS admin stop server. No, so we don't want to do this. Not the whole service. It's going to log me out, but that's okay. Go to our services, FileMaker Server. I'm just going to hit restart. Stop and close. That's us getting kicked out. In the back. And now it's back up. So there we go. Now we've enabled, oops, let's go back here. What was the password we set in here? There we go. Okay. And yeah, so now we've successfully enabled PHP web publishing. So really important, if you're upgrading from 16 to 17, you're going to have to do that through the command line. Actually, while we have this open, I'll show you. If you don't like that daily backup schedule, midnight's not the right time for you. We do FMS admin list schedules. That lists our backup schedules on here. This one called FMS is that daily backup. We can turn this off by doing FMS admin disable schedule 1, the ID there 1, Yes, turn that off. So there we go. Now we've disabled that automatic backup. We'll turn it back on. Our automatic backup is back on. Back to the admin console. So I think that's, let's see, we're about 45 minutes. Okay. Those are some of the critical areas that I've kind of seen for features that people are really going to be using a lot that you're gonna want to set up right away with the new FileMaker Server admin console. A couple other things to mention. I found that with plugins, you don't have to restart the server to install plugins anymore. That's convenient. You just drop it in there, it'll show up in here, and you can turn them on. I was surprised. That's great. The data API has been improved quite a bit with FileMaker 17. It's been finalized. They've added the ability to run scripts through the data API, as well as upload container data. That's a big one. Now, the pricing for this works where you get charged for data that you take out of FileMaker. And that's what this annual limit is here, and the reset date. But uploading does not count against your data limit. And you can insert stuff into containers now through the data API. So that's great. If you got some pictures from some other app you're making, you're going to send it up here through the data API, totally fine. Be careful taking it out, because you'll burn through that taking binary data, but you can upload it now, which is something that I'm excited about. And with the new admin console, there is also an entirely new, so separate from the regular FileMaker data API, which is now live in finals, there is an admin console API where you can do all of this admin stuff through the data API. A lot of people now have actually made, there are a number of them out there, FileMaker apps, FileMaker solutions, which have essentially an alternate FileMaker Server admin console. You put in the address of your server, you can type in your sign-in credentials, and these FileMaker-based solutions, and some of them are other web-based solutions, will replicate a lot of the FileMaker Server admin console functionality with some other changes for things that people might find useful. But let's take a look at how to see this. Now, the FileMaker admin data API is a trial. It is not finalized yet. Like in FileMaker 16, the data API was not finalized. 17 it is. This is a trial like we had with the data API in 16 through September 27th, 2019. So I imagine some point in the future, next version of FileMaker, they will have this finalized. But for now, just keep in mind that it's a trial. There could be changes with this. But we can see the documentation for this right on the server by going to fmi/admin/API doc. Here's all the documentation for the new FileMaker admin API. So just like the FileMaker data API that was introduced in 16 and finalized in 17, this is a REST-style interface where we can just post and get JSON. So very, very useful, and it's nice to have that through on here. Okay, now I want to switch over and show some things in FileMaker Go which are new. Let me plug in an iPad here. Close all this down. Is this going to get it? Go to the iPad. All right, here we go. So go on to a demo file on here. This is my super secure login on this. Demo 17. All right, so here we go. This is the solution now. This is actually hosted on FileMaker Server as well. There are a number of new features with, let's change this to just show the iPad screen here. Okay, hopefully that'll look a little bit better for everybody online. So this is the iPad connected, FileMaker Go connected onto our file hosted on FileMaker Server 17. There are some new sensor values that you can get with functions. If you're going to use those in your script to get like a barometer pressure, temperature, orientation, acceleration, all those sensors are available now. I'm not going to show all those, but the one thing I do want to show on here, which is new and interesting and I think very exciting, is the ability to do local notifications, native iOS notifications, and then use those notifications to trigger scripts. So I've got this button here, which is going to trigger a notification. This is going to essentially put an on-timer script in. Now this one's set for 3 seconds. And after 3 seconds, we're going to get a notification, even with FileMaker closed, that I will then be able to act on to run a script or do something else that we want to do. FileMaker does not need to return to the foreground to be able to do some of these script actions. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to hit trigger notification and then hit the home button to exit out of FileMaker. Hit trigger, close this down. Here we go. We have a notification, an iOS notification from FileMaker. I can pull down on this to see more information about this, and then I can set buttons down here. Now you can do the 3 buttons. I've got 1, but you can title it. I just called this my title, my body. You can put information in here, and then you can label these buttons and use the user's interaction with these buttons to trigger scripts back in your solution. So I'm going to just tap on this my button 1, and we didn't do anything because I didn't want to. That's fine. We don't have to do anything. They just interact with the notification. It's going to do some stuff in the background. So what happened in the background when I did this? Let's switch back here so I'm showing my whole screen. Go back here. All right. Here's that iPad again. Let's go back to FileMaker and see what we got. I'm going to look in the logs here. That was an old one. This is the result of what we just did. So I have a script in here. Let's take a look at the scripts to see what's happening. So I use this new script step, configure local notification. You can specify a notification name, which is used to identify which notification you're doing if you have a lot of different notifications that you're going to set up in your solution. The script that you want to trigger from this notification. We're going to have that script triggering notification script with the parameter myScript parameter. A delay, we give it a title, body, button labels, and we can specify if the button should bring FileMaker back to the foreground. Now in this last notification, I did not have this button checked. So let's check it this time. I'm just going to say true. Let's add another button on here also. We'll just say background, button 2. Oops. Background, button 1. We'll say foreground. And all right, that's good. So let's trigger that again from FileMaker on the iPad here. I'm going to trigger the notification, hit the home, get the notification. We've got the additional button on here, foreground and background. Those are the 2 we just set up. This time I'm going to hit the foreground button, which we've now set to pull FileMaker up to the foreground. So it runs and brings it back up to the foreground. We can decide what we want to do from here. We can show dialogues, we can create records, take these layouts, whatever we want to do. Similarly, we can use this to detect iBeacons. New with FileMaker Go 17, we can have iBeacons be detected in the background and then have actions based on that. But so we put this back up here. We brought this back up to the foreground. This is the one we had before. This is our new one here. So let's take a look and see what we see when this is triggered. When a user interacts with a notification from FileMaker Go, it runs one script. You set a script to be the recorder of those interactions with the notification, and it passes these information to the script as a script parameter. So the first thing on here is the name that you set for the notification. So I call that David notification name. Here we have the label of the button. This next shows if FileMaker was brought to the foreground or not when the button was clicked. And then we have a script parameter which was being passed to that script, the script that we specified in there. So if I do this again, let's go back on here. I'm going to trigger the notification. Home. Get our notification. I'm going to set background. Now let's take a look on here. As I type background, we're going to see another log entry show up in here. FileMaker does not get brought to the foreground. Oops, did I not update that? Oh, where did our... oh, did I not trigger that one to go to the... hold on a second. We've got that on here. I should pull this out and show that FileMaker was not required, not brought back to the foreground from that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it put it in the next time. It ran that script the next time FileMaker was opened up again. So that brought it in. So the second time we ran it, there are different runs on here. Trigger notification, go back down here, get our notification, and hit background again. FileMaker's not doing anything. Back up here, okay. Oh, this is supposed to be showing 0 because FileMaker was not brought back up. Why am I getting something different there? Let's take a look at this. So here's the documentation on this. This is what we see. Line number 1, the name of the notification. 2, line 2 on here is the label of the button, if they have tapped on that, or some other alerts if it was blocked, like notification not allowed because it was not allowed to run. The user has blocked it through iOS, or if FileMaker is still in the foreground. If I click this on here, this is not going to run it. Give it a couple seconds. We should see nothing if I tapped it properly. There we go. So we didn't get a notification that time because FileMaker was still in the foreground. And so we get this error notification not displayed that gets passed in as the parameter to our script. The third line is 1 if FileMaker Go is in the foreground when the script was queued, 0 if FileMaker Go was in the background when the script was queued. I think that's why, because I opened it up quickly again. And then the optional script parameter. So this is what I passed in here. It's called my script parameter. That's what we got in there. So you can use this to have all sorts of interactions from your users so that you can decide if they want to respond to some event that has happened. And you can send those notifications to them. You have to schedule it while it's in the foreground, but they can come back and they get those notifications later. So it's very, very nice to have that native notification feature in here. Let's see here, and I think that's all I'm going to show on FileMaker Go. Let me disconnect this. Okay, so there's one more thing which I want to talk about. I'm not going to go into a full demo of this because this is a whole other thing. But there is a new tool with FileMaker 17, which is the data migration tool. Now, this is only available with the FileMaker developer subscription. So It doesn't like come with FileMaker Pro, but you get the FileMaker developer subscription. It's $99 a year. There are a number of benefits to that. You get new releases of software. There's some training materials that come with it. But this FileMaker migration tool is, let's see if we can show you the documentation for this one here. So this is used for migrating data from one version of a FileMaker file to another without having to go through the whole process of importing data from one solution to another. So this is really useful if you're going to have your live file and you want to do work on an offline dev file. So you've got version 1 on the server, you're working on version 1.1 offline or on another server somewhere, you're making your changes. You don't want to interrupt everyone on the live server. Now, when you're ready to go live, you're like, okay, 1.1, version 1.1 are new versions in good shape. Let's get this rolled out and deployed. The way you would have to do that migration before is either go through and copy and paste your script steps and your layout changes from your dev version to the live one, or you could stop the live file to stop users from entering it. Download that, run an import from your live file to your dev version, and then push your dev version back up to the server. But that import can take a while. I mean, if you've got like hundreds of thousands of records, millions of records, it's going to go through auto entry options. Maybe people have changed their passwords. Now you're going to lose the password changes that they put in the file. It used to be a big deal. But the data migration tool moves all of those data over from your live file to your dev file. It goes to a clone. You have to make a clone of whatever the new version file or the new version is that you want to put it into. And it does it really, really, really fast. And it'll bring over all of those extra things that you would have otherwise missed just from running an import script. It'll take over user accounts, password changes, value lists. It'll bring all those things in. It'll move all the data over so much faster than an import would, because I think the way it works, it does like some block copying and just moves data over in a fairly raw fashion. I mean, we're talking a difference of an hour of maybe an import taking an hour versus the data migration tool maybe taking a couple of seconds to run. It is lightning fast. So it makes that process of having a live file and a dev file and then switching to a new version and getting all those changes over in one shot really fast, really easy. The process for doing that is stop your live file, take it down, download it, get your copy of that, take your dev file, make a clone of your dev file, then use the data migration tool to migrate your data from your old live file to your clone, which is going to become your new live file. It's done on the command line. A couple commands. It's not anything too complicated. And there are a couple tools that you can download to help you write the commands for that. But it'll move all that over. It'll bring over all the data from the fields, the different tables. It'll move over the user accounts, the passwords, the value list changes that people have made through there. It'll get it done, and then you upload your clone, which is now filled with data, back up to your server, and you're back up and running. So a process that might have taken you a few hours of downtime before, depending on the size of the data that you needed to migrate, you can now get done in a couple of minutes. It makes working on versions of a FileMaker solution, working offline or working on a dev copy without disrupting the live file, much more manageable and with much less downtime than you would otherwise have.
I think there's a companion tool for that too. Something like 360 deploy.
So yeah, and we did a demo of that last time.
Yeah.
So that's
Which leverages the FileMaker data migration tool.
Oh, so there you go. Yeah. So there's that available. There are a couple other people. So that does a whole solution as far as doing the whole process of deploying the new version for you. And that's a paid product. Yeah. We saw the demo of that last time. We got the recording on our website too, and it looks really good. If you want something a little simpler, there are a couple utilities out there which will help you do the migration by writing the commands for you. Say, I'm going to take this file, move it into this file, and it'll give you all the commands to run, and some of them will actually even do all the run the commands for you, so you don't have to do any of the command line stuff. Now you still have to manage the process of stopping the file, downloading it, uploading a new file, these pre-utilities are there just to provide a GUI for the migration tool, essentially. That's all they do. 360 Deploy is a very different product that is really a deployment tool to manage all of that. But it is new with 17. Requires a FileMaker developer subscription, so it's a little bit of a bonus thing if you have a developer subscription. But it's really useful, and I definitely recommend checking that out if you get the developer subscription. So, any other questions from anyone? Thomas, do we have any questions online? Anything to say there?
One is just a suggestion for a future topic. FileMaker Go with the iOS SDK.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about new things in FileMaker 17?
We're going to talk about any changes to licensing and pricing.
Yeah, so we can talk about that a little bit. The licensing has changed pretty significantly with 17. Licensing is now per user versus getting a server and a certain number of users and some FileMaker Pro and you know, a number of connections. FileMaker for Teams is gone. It's now very straightforward. How many users do you have? You get 10 users. You buy 10 user licenses. They get access to FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, WebDirect, and you get a server for each user as well. So maybe not a lot of companies are going to take advantage of that. Maybe you have a live server and a staging server or dev server, something like that. But as a developer, if you have a couple licenses for your company for FileMaker and you're going to put up lots of test servers to go break things, now you've got one license per user. You can go spin up some instances on AWS, like what we did here, and get a test server out. Oh, you're right. I think it's three. It's three servers per user.
So every
Yeah.
user gets 3 servers.
Including FileMaker Cloud. If you want to test with that, you can use one of those licenses to deploy a server on FileMaker Cloud.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that makes that good for testing as well. One of the 3 licenses per user can be used for FileMaker Cloud. Yeah. Now the site licenses are still available. If you have a larger company, those are worth checking out. Get around 25 users, sometimes a little less. The price break makes that worthwhile. There's some price breaks at certain thresholds where it gets discounted a little bit. But it's really nice that it's generally simpler, and you just get everything. And there's not even a difference between FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced anymore. It's just FileMaker Pro Advanced.
Is there a 5-pack still?
On the website, I think you can buy. I think so. Yeah, you can still buy this through there. But yeah, the annual licensing, I think that's going to start at 5 people, and yeah, very, very easy to deal with. Now you just get the number of users that you got. Concurrent licensing is still also available if you need that. But for a lot of people, it's the per user licensing is going to be the way to go. Yeah.
I have a question. How does 17 affect FileMaker Cloud?
So there are FileMaker Cloud 17 has been updated with the new FileMaker 17 features. One important thing to keep in mind with that is, and this is different between FileMaker Cloud 17 and FileMaker Server 17. FileMaker Server, if you have a deployment of FileMaker Server, you connect with FileMaker clients back to 15. So like FileMaker Pro 15, 16, and 17 can connect onto FileMaker Server 17. Would 14 connect onto that too? I don't think 14 can. I think it's just 15, 16, and 17.
No, but I remember that question.
Yeah.
And then I got it wrong.
With FileMaker Cloud 17, only FileMaker 17 clients can connect to it. So you cannot use FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Go 15 or 16 or anything earlier to connect to FileMaker Cloud 17. Only FileMaker 17 clients can connect to FileMaker Cloud 17. It's not the case with a standard like Windows or Mac FileMaker Server deployment. You can use the earlier versions of FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Go. The FileMaker Cloud, only Cloud, will only work with 17 clients.
Will 17 client work with 16 cloud?
FileMaker Pro 17 can connect to FileMaker Pro and Go 17 can connect to earlier versions of FileMaker Server. Yes, including Cloud. Yeah. You don't get, all the features of, you don't get the protection of what was it called? The login protection, the account lockouts. So yeah, you don't get the account lockout protection by connecting to an earlier version of FileMaker Server. If you want the account lockout protection, the file must be hosted on FileMaker 17. Using a FileMaker Pro 17 does not have anything to do with the account lockout stuff. So that's something to keep in mind.
So Earl would like that sensory collection of data, because he does that health app, so you can get your Apple Watch and send their heartbeat.
Let's see. We can take a look at that. We can pull it up here. Let's see here. FileMaker goes. FileMaker 17. Get sensor.
You could do diagnostics on his patients.
So this is the new function that we didn't pull up and do a demo in here because we're kind of out of time. Now we're going a little bit long. But this is the new FileMaker Go function. Get sensor. Where you can specify a sensor name and some additional options in there. And you can get all kinds of things like battery level. Here we go. Battery level, battery status, location data, altitude, rotation, accelerometer data, compass things, step counts, air pressure. So there's a lot that's available.
Wow. Is there a way to get an external event on the Go to trigger something in FileMaker?
iBeacons.
iBeacons.
And you can use FMP URLs in FileMaker Go. Now that does bring up another new feature. If you're using the iOS app SDK, there's an app delegation extension which allows you to send URLs to FileMaker Go, not just like the FMP URLs, but you can actually send it to your app. If you make your own, so if you use an FMP, if you got FileMaker Go on your device, you're going to use FMP:// it'll open up FileMaker Go. But if you make your own app that's not FileMaker Go, you make your own app using the FileMaker iOS SDK. I'm David from Blue Feather. I could make a BFP, a Blue Feather protocol instead of FMP. We can use BFP:// and I could make URLs to BFP:// go to my custom app. A not opening through FileMaker Go, but an app built through the FileMaker iOS SDK. I could delegate that URL to go to my custom app. So you can trigger FileMaker Go on iOS using FMP URLs, and iBeacons now there's support for that as well. Or if you're using the iOS SDK, you can use this delegation feature of iOS to make your own URLs to trigger things in your app, like the FMP URLs to FileMaker Go.
That's in there.
The app delegation is a new thing in FileMaker 17. FMP's been in there, but for the iOS SDK, that's new.
Okay. I thought it was something a little more in depth with it. Like there are limitations to FMP, like you can call a script, but they're very limited depending on what you get back. Because I integrated with Square once. Like Square would send a data blob, but I guess that's a curl or what. But there's no way to get to it because it sends it back to FileMaker. FileMaker won't take it. You have to have all your parameters in the URL. It won't get, I guess, the curl.
There might be something else with that.
I wonder if that was what the app delegation is. You can actually, I thought it gives you access to more of that.
It might do that too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
because that was
I haven't checked that out too much. As app delegation.
But that was in 16, and I remember looking at the SDK. Definitely, you actually had to set up a.
Yeah, there's more stuff to it. Let's see, is this the guy here further here? I don't know where it is in here, but yeah, there's more to it, and that the iOS SDK is its whole other thing. That's what someone wants to do for the next project. So who wants to do that next time? That seems like a really good thing to do. Okay, yeah, I think that's FileMaker 17. Lots of new things there. Yep. Okay. Do we have any other questions online from anything?
No.
We got it all? Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. watching online, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.